In the opening of the drama, we meet the male lead, Young-joon. He's the vice chairman of the Young-joon group, and ever since he took over the company, profits have literally doubled. Because of that, he's been crowned the most talented CEO in the country. And if we're talking about looks, yeah, the guy hit the genetic jackpot. Tall, ridiculously handsome, sharp features, basically the kind of guy who walks into a room and everyone suddenly forgets what they were doing. Naturally, he knows it too. His confidence level is somewhere between very high and astronomical. Because of this, countless women dream about meeting him, getting close to him, maybe even dating him. But Young-joon, he barely pays attention to anyone. He acts like admiration is just background noise. But today, when he walks into a party, there's only one question running through his mind. What's wrong with Secretary Kim? Don't worry, we'll get that answer later. Now it's time to meet the female lead of the drama, Kim Miso. In this story, everyone simply calls her Kim, so don't get confused. She has been working as Young-joon's secretary for 9 years. And honestly, if you had to describe her job in one sentence, it would be the perfect secretary for the world's most demanding boss. Her job is basically to manage every little detail of Young-joon's life, from schedules to meetings to things he probably doesn't even realize he needs. Today, while preparing him for an important meeting, Young-joon suddenly asks her a question with complete seriousness. Have you ever seen a more perfect person than me? Now Kim knows exactly what kind of answer he likes. After 9 years of working with him, she understands his personality better than anyone. Most of the time, she either compliments him or simply smiles politely. But today something happens. At the office, Young-joon suddenly gets furious and threatens to fire Mr. Jo, shouting that the company's reputation has been damaged because of him. He says building an image is extremely difficult, and mistakes like this are unacceptable. After angrily leaving the room, Mr. Jo starts crying, convinced that his career is basically over. But Kim quietly handles the situation. She comforts him and tells him to take the day off, go home, rest and come back tomorrow. However, the moment Mr. Jo leaves the office, Kim orders the staff to remove his desk and clear all his belongings. And here she says something very straightforward. Has Mr. Leong ever given anyone a second chance? If we start doing that now, it wouldn't make sense. The truth is, Young-joon didn't reach this powerful position by accident. His calculations and business instincts are incredibly sharp. For example, during a presentation that same day, a tiny mistake appears in the slides and he spots it within 2 minutes. After he leaves the room, the employees all react the same way. They're terrified of him, but at the same time they're also deeply impressed. Later, Young-joon casually tells Kim that her English has improved a lot. He reminds her of a trip they took to the United States 9 years ago, when she spoke English so beautifully that it impressed everyone. Kim immediately gives him the credit and says her improvement is all because of his strict personality. But Young-joon can resist teasing her. He points out that she just pronounced a word incorrectly, making the moment a little awkward. That evening, Young-joon attends a party, and of course, Kim accompanies him as his partner. The event is hosted by the Spanish ambassador, and here we learn something interesting about Young-joon. Not only does he speak English, but he's also fluent in Spanish, Italian, and French. As expected, plenty of women at the party are completely charmed by him. Some even believe he's smiling at them and walking toward them. But instead, Young-joon walks straight past 3 girls, pushes between them, and heads directly toward a mirror. And while staring at his own reflection, he starts thinking, is there really anyone in this world as handsome as me? Yes, his confidence truly has no limits. On the way back from the party, Kim tries to say something to him, but before she can speak, Young-joon immediately stops her. Why? Because he assumes she's about to confess her love to him. He quickly says, look, don't confess your feelings to me, we only have a professional relationship, let's not ruin that. Kim simply smiles at his dramatic assumption and calmly replies, no sir, that's not what I was going to say. Then she says something that completely catches him off guard. You should find a new secretary. I'm planning to resign. She explains that the reason is personal. Young-joon tries to act calm and says it's fine, but later that night, we discover that he's actually extremely disturbed by the news. It's already 2 a.m., and he still can't sleep. He can understand why this is bothering him so much. But the truth is simple. After working together for 9 years, he has unknowingly become completely used to having Kim around. And the idea of life without her suddenly feels very strange. The next day, the news spreads throughout the office that Secretary Kim is leaving. Everyone starts asking her about it, but she simply repeats the same answer. It's a personal matter. Meanwhile, several female employees start wondering who will become the next secretary. One woman in particular, Miss Bong, is extremely hopeful. She believes that since Young-joon is so handsome, and she considers herself the most beautiful woman in the office after Kim, she's obviously the perfect candidate. Later, Young-joon talks to Kim again and asks if she has truly thought this through. But his pride gets in the way. Instead of asking her to stay, he simply orders the company to post an advertisement for a new secretary. Whenever Young-joon feels confused or frustrated, he always goes to talk to his friend Park. So he visits him and complains. Why is she doing this? Why would she suddenly leave such a good job after 9 years? Park responds thoughtfully. He says a woman who stayed by Young-joon's side through 9 difficult years deserves a special title. She's not just a girl, Park says, she's basically an angel. But Park isn't exactly the best person to give relationship advice. He immediately starts talking about his own tragic life. Apparently he also got divorced from his wife, and on their 9th anniversary, his wife said something brutally harsh. I don't even know why you breathe. You're wasting oxygen. Park dramatically continues telling his sad story, but before ending the conversation he still gives Young-joon one piece of advice. Try to make a breakthrough with her, maybe she'll change her mind. Meanwhile, on the other side we see Kim doing something very important. She is about to make the final payment on a huge loan, and she looks incredibly happy. It seems that paying off this debt was the biggest burden of her life, and now it has finally been lifted. But at the same time, something interesting happens. After years of living as Secretary Kim, she seems to have forgotten her own identity. At one point she accidentally writes Secretary Lee instead of her own name, almost like her personal life disappeared while working. Later, Young-joon calls her again and asks her to come with him. He takes her to his house because he's having lunch with his family. On the way there, he suddenly stops the car and starts talking to her seriously. Then he makes a very big offer. He says he'll promote her to director. Before she can even respond, he keeps adding more incentives. If the workload is too much, he'll give her an assistant. If that's still not enough, he'll increase her salary, housing benefits, and other perks. He lists so many advantages that it feels like a full corporate recruitment presentation. Then he confidently says, "You have 1 day to think about it. Because honestly, you're never going to get another chance to work with someone as perfect as me." Later, during lunch with his family, it becomes clear that Kim has practically become part of their household. She knows Young-joon's habits better than anyone, and she takes care of every detail of his life. Young-joon's father pulls him aside and suddenly says something dramatic. "I think my time has come," he says, "I might die soon." Then he reveals his final wish. He wants to see his grandchildren. Young-joon immediately shuts this down, saying his father shouldn't make excuses like that because he personally checks his father's medical reports every year, and they're completely healthy. Meanwhile, Young-joon's mother sits with Kim and begins talking to her privately. She explains that her son has never had a serious relationship. Sometimes he takes women to parties but only for appearance sake. Then she nervously asks Kim a question that she seems almost embarrassed to say. Her voice trembles slightly, and the teacup in her hand almost slips. She asks, "Is my son gay?" Kim had actually anticipated this question. She quickly reassures her, "No, auntie. I've known him for 9 years, there's nothing like that." Hearing this, Young-joon's mother immediately feels relieved. But judging by the way she looks at Kim, it's obvious that she already likes her a lot. Later that evening, Kim looks incredibly cheerful. It feels like a huge weight has been lifted from her shoulders. She's having dinner with her sisters, and here we finally learn the real reason behind everything. For years, she tolerated her extremely demanding boss because her family was buried under massive debt. Her father had taken a huge loan and all 3 sisters worked tirelessly to repay it. During that time, Kim even had to sell her car, the same car that Young-joon once gave her as a gift. On the other hand, Leon is sitting there looking completely worried. He keeps thinking about Kim's sudden decision to resign, and he just can't figure out what this mysterious, personal reason could possibly be. What kind of personal matter could make someone quit after working for 9 years? And then suddenly something clicks in his mind. He remembers the party from earlier. A girl had approached him and said, "Today is my birthday, so at least give me a bouquet." Now normally, Kim always handled these kinds of situations perfectly. She always knew exactly what to do and when to do it. Without wasting a second, she had run off and brought a bouquet of flowers. But what Leon didn't realize at the time was that Kim was actually allergic to pollen. Because of that, as soon as she held the flowers, she started sneezing and her eyes got watery. Now when Leon remembers that moment, that exact image of her face appears in his mind. But of course, his brain immediately jumps to the most dramatic conclusion possible. He thinks to himself, "When I gave the bouquet to that girl, and that must be why Kim's eyes filled with tears." Then he starts analyzing the situation like some kind of romantic detective. Why didn't I notice this earlier? He wonders. She must have been jealous. After all, she worked with him for 9 years. In his mind, it's completely impossible that she wouldn't fall for him eventually. Then he confidently concludes, "Who could resist someone as perfect as me?" Meanwhile, at that exact same time Kim is peacefully having dinner with her sisters. Suddenly her phone rings. It's Leon. And he says very casually, "Do you know where I am? Come pick me up." For 9 years, it has always been Kim's responsibility to follow his instructions, no matter what time he calls. So she immediately gets ready to leave, but just as she's about to go she notices something terrifying, a spider. And it turns out Kim has a serious fear of spiders. She freezes for a moment, completely frightened. Still, she eventually manages to leave and heads to pick up Leong. When she reaches his car, she notices something strange. Leong is sitting there, talking to himself. As soon as she gets into the car, he hands her a bouquet of flowers, and the moment she holds them, she immediately starts sneezing again, with tears forming in her eyes. But Leong completely misreads the situation once again. Instead of realizing it's an allergy, he thinks she's getting emotional. So in his mind, the tears are proof that she's touched by his gesture. Kim, on the other hand, simply grabs the bouquet and tosses it straight into the trunk. During the entire drive, Leong keeps explaining something to her. "There's nothing between me and Jihan," he says. "Think of it as purely a business partnership, and for the record, I'm not dating anyone." The reason he's saying all this is because he believes Kim must be feeling jealous. He thinks if he clears things up, maybe she'll stop thinking about resigning. But the funny part is that Kim doesn't care about any of that. She wasn't thinking about his dating life at all. Calmly, she just replies, "Sir, I'm resigning because I want to live my own life." And that sentence hits Leong like a truck. For the past 2 nights, he hasn't been able to sleep at all. It's already 2 a.m. and his mind is racing. The next morning his alarm rings at 5 a.m., but he hasn't slept a single minute. All night he kept asking himself one question: were you not living your life during the past 9 years? He's so stressed that, believe it or not, a pimple suddenly appears on his perfectly polished face, and this man actually starts yelling at the pimple in the mirror. "How dare you appear on my flawless face?" After that dramatic moment, he heads to the office and starts calculating something. He adds up all the hours he spent working with Kim over the past 9 years, including overtime. And the number is so huge that even married couples probably don't spend that much time together. That's when another thought pops into his head. Maybe Kim got hurt because she liked him too much. Maybe she's resigning because her feelings got too strong. A little later he finally sees Kim at the office. And today she looks extremely fresh and cheerful. Leong stares at her in disbelief. "I haven't slept for 2 nights, he thinks, and she looks like she just came back from a relaxing vacation. Eventually they both start interviewing candidates for the new secretary position. And in a moment that's both funny and ridiculous, Leong chooses a candidate mainly because her last name is also Kim. He convinces himself that if the new secretary is also called Secretary Kim, maybe he won't miss the original one as much. So the new secretary is hired, and it becomes Kim's job to train her. Later, when Leong asks again why she's leaving, Kim finally explains more clearly. "Sir," she says, "I'm getting older. I think it's time for me to think about my family life. I want to date and eventually get married." After this conversation, Kim goes out to meet some of her friends. Many of them are already married and some even have children. Seeing them makes her feel hopeful and excited about starting her own life. She feels happy knowing that once she finishes training the new secretary, she'll finally be free. Before leaving, she writes an important note for the new secretary. The note says something very simple but meaningful. "Don't forget to live your own life." But later that night, something unexpected happens. Someone shows up at Kim's house, and that someone is none other than Leong. He asks her to come downstairs and immediately asks a very direct question. "Are you dating someone?" Kim sighs and explains her reality. "Sir, I wake up at 6 a.m. every day, and I don't even know when my workday ends. Do you really think I have time to date in that situation?" Then Leong asks something else. "Is getting married really so important that you're willing to leave such a great job?" Kim answers honestly. "What do you want? Should I grow old doing this job? And when I finally need someone in my life, I'll be completely alone?" Hearing this, Leong suddenly makes a shocking offer. He says, "Look, if you don't resign and stay as my secretary, then I guarantee that I, Young-joon, will marry you." But instead of being shocked, Kim simply walks closer to him and calmly asks, "Sir, have you been drinking?" Later Leong is telling this whole story to Park. The Park bursts out laughing and says, "Congratulations, you've just been indirectly rejected." But our hero refuses to accept defeat. He proudly declares, "Is there any girl on earth who would reject a marriage proposal from me? That's impossible." Instead, he convinces himself that Kim probably wants a proper romantic proposal or maybe a date first. Meanwhile, when Leong returns to Kim's house, Jihan, who has been following him, also arrives there. She immediately asks Kim what kind of relationship she has with Leong. Kim explains that they've simply worked together for 9 years. Then she adds something interesting. In 9 years, he has never dated anyone, and the reason because he's so perfect that no girl can actually satisfy him. On the other side, Park tries to give Leong some advice. He says, "Relax, a new secretary will come, but if you're this obsessed, you should at least figure out one thing. Do you like her as your secretary or as a woman?" But Leong still refuses to admit anything. Instead he says something very strange. "You know, she's like a tailor-made suit, a secretary designed perfectly just for me." Meanwhile, Kim is at home reading her diary. Inside it, she had written memories about her childhood sweetheart. The next day, the new secretary Jia starts working. While Kim is training her, she finds an old photo in the files from 9 years ago. That photo takes her back to the time when she had just started working with Leon. Back then, she even traveled with him to the United States for work. But during that trip, Leon used to scold her constantly for even the smallest mistakes. She was extremely stressed and exhausted. One day, she finally snapped and shouted at him, "Do you even realize how hard I'm trying? I sleep only 2 or 3 hours. I'm doing my best to adapt here. Have you never made a mistake in your life?" And Leon calmly replied, "No, never." Then he added, "Because I'm a perfect person." Hearing that, poor Kim seriously thought about quitting the job right then, but she couldn't. She was buried under heavy loans and had no choice but to keep working. So instead, she decided to improve herself and become just as perfect as him. And over time, she truly became the perfect secretary for the perfect boss. Later at the office, Kim announces to her colleagues that she will soon be leaving, so she wants to host a farewell party for everyone. The employees are thrilled. That evening, they all go out for dinner together. While everyone else is happily celebrating, Leon is secretly feeling miserable about Kim leaving. The team chooses a simple restaurant, nothing fancy. They're all laughing, eating, and enjoying the moment. But suddenly someone walks into the restaurant, and it's Leon-joon. However, instead of being excited, everyone suddenly feels extremely uncomfortable. It's obvious that Leon doesn't belong in a place like this. Normally he only goes to high-end, luxurious restaurants, so why would he come here? Honestly, it's pretty clear. He came because of Kim. After a while they start playing a little game where everyone praises someone they appreciate. When it's Kim's turn, Leon expects that she'll probably praise him for everything before leaving. But instead, she surprises everyone. She says, "Today, for the first time, I want to praise myself for achieving something great during these 9 years." Hearing that, Leon becomes visibly irritated, and soon the group decides to leave the restaurant and go somewhere else. As they walk away, Leon watches Kim laughing and looking happier than ever, and that only makes him even more frustrated. Still, somehow, he manages to tolerate it. After all that chaos at dinner, Leon actually ends up driving Kim home himself. As she's about to get out of the car, he says something in a slightly sarcastic tone. "Wow, I barely survived spending all that time with you tonight. You must have had a great time." What he doesn't realize is that for poor Kim, being in that environment was almost suffocating. For her, those moments were exhausting rather than enjoyable. But Leon keeps going, probably explaining that this is what her everyday life would look like if she stayed with him. "You know," he says, "your daily life would be like this because I'm such a sweet person who keeps you updated." Kim, however, isn't impressed at all. Without hesitation, she replies, "Sir, you're not my type. I'll probably date an ordinary man and marry someone like that." Then she calmly walks inside her house. Leon stands there in shock and pure frustration. Angry, he stays downstairs near his car and starts texting her non-stop. "How dare you reject me?" he messages, but Kim doesn't hold back either. After all, she's about to leave the job anyway. She replies, honestly, "You're extremely selfish. You spend all day looking at yourself in the mirror. You have no idea how I survived these 9 years. Do you think I want to spend the rest of my life the same way? The only person you love is yourself, and honestly, you're very inconsiderate." Before leaving, Leon sends one final message. "There are only 2 people in this world who can call me inconsiderate. One is you, and the other is my brother." After that he finally goes home. But that night he has a terrible dream and once again can't sleep properly. The next morning he sees his tie hanging there and suddenly remembers Kim. On the very first day she helped tie his tie, she was extremely nervous. Back then she was practically trembling while trying to get it right. Later at the office, Leon intentionally shows up without wearing a tie. Kim approaches him to fix it, as she always does, but this time he refuses. "You don't need to do that anymore," he says coldly. "Thank you for your 9 years of hard work. Just stay for 1 more month. By then the new secretary will be fully trained and you can leave." Throughout the day he keeps ignoring her, during meetings and everywhere else, while giving all his attention to the new secretary, Gia. Whenever Gia makes mistakes, Leon scolds Kim instead, telling her to train the new girl properly. But when Gia tries to help him tie his tie, Leon immediately refuses. It becomes obvious that before this, he never allowed anyone to get that close to him except Kim. The next day Kim goes out to dinner with her friends. During dinner they hand her a questionnaire. One of the questions says, "If you went on a date with your boyfriend, what would your dream date look like?" What Kim doesn't know is that this questionnaire was secretly arranged by Leon. He wanted to find out what her ideal date would be so he could recreate it. Meanwhile, Kim is feeling lighter and happier after deciding to leave the job. But deep down, when she sees how Leon is now giving attention to Secretary Gia instead of her, she feels a strange discomfort. A tiny spark of jealousy starts burning inside her too. Soon the weekend arrives. Mr. Park suddenly calls Kim and asks her to meet him somewhere, saying he has something important to discuss. So she goes to the location and waits there. But it turns out Park was just an excuse. Leon was the one who actually called her there. Suddenly all the lights around the place turn on. Kim realizes she's standing outside Joyland, an entire amusement park. Then Leon appears, smiling. It turns out he has booked the entire amusement park just for her. They go on different rides together, laughing and enjoying themselves. For the first time in years, Kim looks genuinely carefree. Seeing the smile on her face makes Leon unexpectedly happy. It feels like this is the life Kim had been talking about, the life she never had the chance to live during those 9 exhausting years. Later he even arranges a special dinner for her and personally prepares the meat himself. Kim is honestly shocked. She asks him, "Sir? Are you okay? Why are you doing all this for me?" Leon casually replies, "You worked with me for 9 years and now you're leaving. I just wanted to give you a farewell that matches my personality." During dinner he even talks about his childhood. "I was very smart," he says proudly. "I skipped 2 grades. After first grade I jumped straight to 4th. Then Kim asks about his older brother. The moment she mentions him, Leon's mood suddenly changes. He gets angry and says bluntly, he's total trash. After that he takes her to an open yard. What? Suddenly fireworks explode in the sky. The scene looks beautiful and magical. Seeing Kim's bright smile during the fireworks makes Leon smile too. It's cold outside, so he removes his coat and gently puts it over her shoulders. But while they're heading home, Kim notices something strange. Leon has a mysterious smile on his face. Then it suddenly hits her. Everything that happened today. The amusement park, the dinner, the fireworks, it's exactly the same as the answers she wrote in yesterday's questionnaire. She immediately realizes that this entire day was secretly planned by Leon. He drops her back home and stops her for a moment. Then he pulls out a giant stuffed toy and gives it to her. Kim had actually written that exact thing in the survey as well. Just as she's about to leave, Leon thanks her. Then he says there's still one last wish left from the questionnaire. According to it, after a perfect date she wanted to share a long kiss with her boyfriend. Leon slowly moves closer to her, but Kim quickly raises the stuffed toy between them like a shield. Then she politely says goodnight and goes inside. Still, it's true that Leon made this day extremely memorable for her. That night Kim dreams about her childhood sweetheart. She doesn't remember his face or even his name. All she remembers is that his last name started with Lee. The next morning Kim sees the same stuffed toy sitting there. Next to it is another small gift. Inside the box is a very beautiful and expensive necklace. She assumes Leon must have accidentally left it there. At the office she goes to return it. But Leon says something surprising. "That must be the necklace I gave you. You can keep it." Later, when Kim helps fix his tie again, something unusual happens. Leon's heart suddenly starts racing. His heartbeat becomes faster and faster. And when he notices that Kim is wearing the same necklace, and looking incredibly beautiful, he feels strangely happy. That same day Kim is supposed to go on a blind date. Some of her coworkers overhear this and immediately spread the news around the office like wildfire. Eventually, Gia accidentally mentions it in front of Leon. She left early today because she has a blind date. The moment Leon hears this, jealousy hits him hard. He immediately rushes to park. Angrily he says, "Yesterday she had such an amazing date with me. And today she's going on a blind date with someone else. Is she crazy?" Meanwhile Kim arrives at the blind date. Unfortunately, the guy she meets is pretty weird. Honestly, he's almost as stressful as her boss. And while sitting there, Kim can help comparing him to the perfect date she had yesterday with Leon. After meeting someone like Leon, it's obviously hard to be impressed by anyone else. At one point the guy tries to remove something from Kim's face. Right at that moment, a colleague who happens to be passing by takes a photo of them. That photo ends up getting shared in their office group chat and eventually reaches Park. The moment Park shows the picture to Leon, his reaction is priceless. He shouts, "She left someone perfect like me to hang out with this monkey, and they're even doing romantic stuff." Without wasting another second, he storms out. Meanwhile Kim notices that the blind date guy's tie isn't properly fixed. Out of habit, because she's used to doing everything perfectly, she starts adjusting his tie. At that exact moment Leon suddenly appears. He shouts so loudly that it looks like Kim was trying to strangle the poor guy with the tie. Then, as if things weren't dramatic enough, a leaf falls onto Leon's suit. He immediately starts complaining. "How dare this leaf ruin the suit of a perfect person like me?" Later that night Kim goes home and talks about everything with her sister. Her sister listens and then says something interesting. "Look, someone like Mr. Lee can fall in love easily. He's probably just possessive. Rich people treat things they like that way." Then she adds another observation. "He even gave you a necklace. Honestly, it looks like a dog collar. Maybe he's just trying to remind you of your place." The next day Kim returns to work, and here we learn something new about her. She actually has a crush on a famous author named Morpheus. He's a Korean writer, but no one knows his real identity. No one has ever even seen his face. On the other side of the story, we finally learn something surprising. The mysterious author Morpheus is returning to Korea. And the shocking twist, Morpheus is actually Mr. Si Young, who happens to be Lee Young's older brother. Meanwhile, Lee Young himself is having a very rough day. Someone in the office has placed cable ties on his desk. The moment he sees them, he freezes in fear. It turns out Lee Young has a serious phobia of cable ties. Just seeing them makes him panic. This whole situation happened because of the new secretary, who didn't know about this issue. Kim immediately explains to the new secretary that she must be extremely careful about this in the future. Apparently something traumatic happened to their boss in the past, and ever since then, whenever he sees cable ties he almost faints. Seeing Lee Young so shaken, Kim suddenly starts thinking about what her sister said earlier. Maybe this isn't just possessiveness. Maybe he really does need her. The next day the company holds its annual sports day. Lee Young loves competition and he especially loves winners. Because of that, Kim always makes sure to win every game. After all, she's the perfect secretary for the perfect boss. But when the three-legged race begins, things get interesting. Kim's partner is a handsome coworker who ends up standing very close to her. And watching this scene, Lee Young's reaction is priceless. The two of them run together and end up winning the race. Everyone around them starts cheering and joking that they look like a perfect couple and should start dating. The moment Lee Young hears that, he becomes furious. In pure jealousy, he declares that this will be the last sports day the company ever holds. From next year onward, sports day is banned, he announces angrily. As he storms away, his foot accidentally hits something on the stairs and he injures himself. Kim immediately rushes over to help him. Leaning on her for support, he slowly walks away from the crowd, and eventually she takes him home. Once they arrive, Kim starts applying a hot pack to his injured foot. While doing that, she notices a large scar there. She quietly wonders how Lee Young could have gotten such a serious injury. Still annoyed, Lee Young suddenly starts complaining. No matter who gets close to you, it doesn't bother you at all. All you care about is winning. While saying this, he slowly leans closer to her. Then suddenly Kim loses her balance and falls right onto him. For a moment they both freeze, staring into each other's eyes. It's one of those classic awkward moments where time seems to stop. Eventually Kim gets embarrassed and quickly gets up saying she'll bring an ice pack. But when she comes back, she sees that Lee Young has already fallen asleep. However, he's clearly having a nightmare. He looks terrified, almost as if he's seeing some kind of witch-like figure in his dream. Kim gently wakes him up. Still shaken, he suddenly asks her something unexpected. "Can you stay here tonight?" Kim immediately reacts. "Sir, you're not a child. Everyone gets scared by bad dreams sometimes." She clearly thinks he's asking her to sleep in the same room. But Lee Young quickly clarifies, "What are you thinking? I meant the guest room. You stayed here before, whenever you worked overtime." Right at that moment Lee Young receives a phone call. It's from his brother Si Young. The moment he hears his brother's voice, his mood instantly darkens. He turns to Kim and says, "Sorry, you should leave now." It turns out he sent her away because his brother was coming over, and he didn't want Kim to run into him. Why he's trying to avoid that meeting is still unclear, but one thing becomes obvious. Si Young actually wants to fix things with his younger brother. During their conversation, Si Young mentions an old incident report, saying that he has already forgiven Lee Young for what happened. Lee Young immediately snaps back, "Who are you to forgive me?" But soon the two brothers start arguing again, blaming each other for something that happened in their childhood. The next day at the office everyone is extremely busy. Their company is preparing to open a new art center, but the opening date has been delayed by a month. Later, Lee Young and Kim go to visit a library related to the same project. While they're there, the power suddenly goes out. Lee Young immediately starts acting brave, as if he's going to protect Kim from the darkness. But when he turns around and shines the flashlight toward her face, the lighting makes her look a little scary. Seeing her like that, he jumps in fright. Kim laughs and says, "You were making such cute faces just now." Lee Young quickly responds, "I'm not cute, I'm macho." Since the electricity will take some time to return, people start sitting around the library reading books. Lee Young secretly watches Kim as she reads a romance novel. The smile that appears on her face while reading it is surprisingly beautiful. Later, when they're leaving the library in the dark, Kim holds Lee Young's hand so he doesn't get lost. The moment she grabs his hand, he suddenly pauses. Kim immediately thinks she made a mistake and lets go. But then Lee Young reaches out and grabs her hand again, this time leading the way himself. When they finally come outside, the library staff apologize to him for the long power outage. Normally Lee Young would never tolerate something like this, but today he surprisingly forgives them. Everyone makes mistakes, he says, giving them another chance. The truth is, he actually enjoyed that quiet time in the dark library with Kim. Inspired by Kim, Lee Young even buys some romance books to read, but after trying to read them, he eventually sighs and says, "Love doesn't seem logical." The next day Kim comes up with an idea. She suggests inviting a famous author to the opening ceremony of the new library. When she presents the idea to Lee Young, he jokingly suggests inviting the author of Harry Potter. Kim laughs and says maybe they should invite a Korean author instead. However, she doesn't mention Morpheus yet. She wants to contact him privately first and discuss the idea before officially presenting it. Meanwhile, Lee Young suddenly hears that his brother Si-young is coming to the office. His mood instantly drops. He quickly sends Kim away again so she won't run into him. But while walking back, Kim accidentally bumps into Si-young. This is actually the second time they've met. The first time was the previous night when Kim was leaving Lee Young's house. Her shoelaces had come undone and Si-young had kindly tied them for her. Now that they've met again, Si-young asks for her phone number. But Kim gives him a fake number and leaves. Later, Lee Young gathers his courage and approaches Kim again. He awkwardly asks, "What do you think about Italian food?" Kim replies, "Sorry sir, I'm very busy today, I can go anywhere." Lee Young quickly says, "I'm not inviting you to lunch with me, I'm just saying you should try Italian food sometime." That evening we see Lee Young sitting in a bar with Park. Park thinks Lee Young is admiring the wine he ordered. But Lee Young smiles and says, "No, I'm just enjoying looking at my reflection in the glass." Meanwhile, at home, Kim is searching online. After a lot of effort, she finally manages to find Morpheus's email address. She sends him a proposal inviting him to the library opening event. The next morning at the office, Kim again notices Lee Young's tie isn't fixed properly. She steps forward and adjusts it. As she gets close, Lee Young's heart suddenly starts beating fast again. After she walks away, he looks confused. "What's happening to me?" He wonders. "My heart never beat this fast before. Maybe I should see a doctor. What if I have a heart disease?" At the same time, Lee Young's mother is trying to bring her two sons back together. She visits Kim and secretly checks Lee Young's schedule. Then she intentionally leaves her handbag behind. She asks Kim to tell Lee Young she forgot it. Her plan is simple. If Lee Young returns the bag in the evening, he'll have to come home. That evening, Lee Young indeed goes home. But he completely ignores his brother. Their parents look extremely worried seeing the tension between them. Si-young has already heard from their parents that Lee Young has a secret weapon, a secretary who has stayed by his side for 9 years. And apparently Lee Young is intentionally keeping her away from him. Si-young directly asks, "You're hiding Kim from me on purpose, aren't you?" Lee Young replies coldly, "You don't have that much courage." Soon the brothers start arguing again about something from their childhood. Si-young asks, "Why do you hate me so much?" Lee Young answers, "The word hate is too small for what I feel toward you." Suddenly Si-young punches him. Lee Young, being the younger brother, almost raises his hand to hit back. But when he sees tears in his mother's eyes, he lowers his hand. Without saying another word, Lee Young storms out of the house. And where does he go? Straight outside Kim's house, just as she's returning home from shopping. When Kim returns home, she immediately notices that her boss is injured, and she gets worried and quickly grabs his hand, helping him inside her house so she can clean the wound and put a bandage on it. She makes him sit down, and while she's carefully wrapping the bandage around his hand, something awkward happens. Both of them suddenly stop talking and just stare at each other. For a few seconds, they get completely lost in each other's eyes. Trying to break the silence, Kim casually asks, "Should I make some instant noodles? I was about to make some for myself anyway." Now normally, Lee Young would never eat something like instant noodles. That's way too ordinary for someone who thinks he's the most perfect man alive. But today, surprisingly, he says yes. While waiting, he starts looking around her room. He notices that most of the books she owns are about love, relationships, and dating. Clearly, Kim has been studying the subject like it's a college course. Then he reaches for her stuffed toy, trying to straighten it, but underneath that toy, Kim had hidden her undergarments. The moment she realizes what he's about to do, she runs toward him in panic to stop him. But in the process she trips, and falls straight into his arms. Lee Young catches her. For a brief moment he softly says a few romantic words, but the second she pulls away, he suddenly ruins the mood by saying, "You probably read lines like that in your romance books." The funny thing is, those words actually came straight from his heart. Soon they sit down to eat what we might call embarrassment noodles. Before leaving, Lee Young thanks her, and that's a big deal. Secretary Kim has almost never heard the word thank you come out of his mouth before. Hearing it makes her unexpectedly emotional. Right after Lee Young leaves, Kim's sister arrives. When she hears that Lee Young was there, she immediately warns Kim, "If you're starting to fall for him, stop right now. You two come from completely different worlds. Don't chase him, he'll only break your heart." Meanwhile, Lee Young is sitting in a park with his friend Park, asking for advice about his love life. Of course, he doesn't admit that the story is about Kim. Instead, he awkwardly explains it as if it's happening to his cousin's classmate. But the next morning Lee Young goes to Kim's house. Kim sees him outside through the window and is surprised. When she walks toward him, she accidentally stumbles, and once again lands right in his arms. Another accidental romantic moment. Kim assumes he came to pick her up because the driver is on leave and she'll have to drive him. But Lee Young surprises her. "I'll drive today," he says, opening the car door for her like a gentleman. Then he suddenly asks, "Have I ever told you how beautiful you look?" Kim immediately becomes shy. But Lee Young quickly ruins the moment again by saying, "You repeat your clothes a lot. You wore that same blouse twice last week." He had noticed it, of course, but he quickly adds, "My memory is just very good." Later at the office, Kim accidentally cuts her hand while picking up some papers. Lee Young immediately grabs a bandage and wraps her finger carefully. Then he announces something dramatic. From now on, I'll only read documents on a tablet. Paper is dangerous. In the next scene, Kim learns that someone has come to visit her. When she goes outside, she sees the same man she had bumped into twice before. Before she can get annoyed and yell at him, he calmly says, "You invited me, I am Morph." Kim freezes. Her favorite author, her idol, is standing right in front of her. They go outside to talk about the library opening event. And during their conversation, Morpheus immediately notices something small. Her boss worked with her for 9 years and never noticed that. But this author picked it up instantly. The difference is simple. Writers observe every little detail. Meanwhile, Lee Young is having dinner with Park at a hotel. Something surprising happens. A small stone appears in Lee Young's food. Park assumes the restaurant is doomed because Lee Young is extremely picky. But today Lee Young calmly says, "It's okay. Anyone can make a small mistake." Clearly something about him is changing. In his mind, he keeps remembering Kim saying she wanted to date an ordinary man. So Lee Young decides something shocking. If that's what she wants, I'll become ordinary. Now he starts researching ordinary restaurants on his computer like it's some kind of scientific experiment. Back at the office, some employees comment that their boss looks incredibly attractive while working. Today, even Kim looks at him differently. Slowly, he's starting to seem more attractive to her too. Later, Lee Young calls Kim into his office. "You'll come to dinner with me tonight," he says. "I've made a reservation somewhere. There's something important I want to tell you." Kim's heart immediately starts beating faster. She even goes shopping for a nice dress. But just as she's leaving the house dressed up, Morpheus, whose real name is Seong, calls her. He says he wants to finalize their deal and asks where she is. When he hears her location, he says he's only 5 minutes away. Meanwhile, Lee Young has reserved a small, ordinary restaurant. He has prepared everything carefully because tonight he plans to finally confess his feelings to Kim. But right outside the restaurant, Kim meets Seong. Seong gives her a copy of his new book. At that exact moment, Lee Young arrives and sees them together. Without saying anything, he grabs the book from Kim and pulls her inside the restaurant. Annoyed, he asks, "You came to meet me. Why were you standing outside with him?" Kim explains that the man is Morpheus, the author she wants to invite for the library opening. Lee Young immediately refuses. "He will never come," he says coldly, "and you don't need to explain anything to me." Kim becomes frustrated. "If there's nothing important to discuss, I don't want to stay here." And she leaves. Meanwhile, poor Lee Young had prepared a full romantic confession inside the restaurant. And now the entire moment is ruined. Later, Seong asks Lee Young directly, "Are you afraid I might steal your secretary from you?" Lee Young responds confidently, "You're not capable of stealing anything from me." The next day, Kim arrives at the office in a terrible mood, but she hears surprising news. The boss has officially chosen Morpheus as the guest for the library opening. She's confused because yesterday he was completely against it. And in reality, Lee Young had separated his personal feelings from business decisions. After all, Kim had worked extremely hard to arrange the meeting. Still annoyed, Kim confronts him. "You always react like this," she says. "Yesterday you refused, today you agree. Fine, you're the boss, I won't question it." But she adds something serious. "From now on, there needs to be distance between us. Please don't cross the line again. I don't want to be disappointed." After that, she continues working for him but keeps her distance. Even when he purposely messes up his tie, she refuses to fix it. Later, she learns through office gossip that Morpheus is actually Se-young, Lee Young's older brother, and that the two brothers have been fighting for years. Now she realizes Lee Young had his own reasons for acting the way he did. Meanwhile, Lee Young is struggling with something else. How do you apologize when you've never apologized to anyone in your life? His ego keeps getting in the way. But finally he gathers the courage. He walks up to Kim and stops her. "Miss Kim, I apologize." Then he continues, "I'm sorry. Yesterday I reacted angrily and hurt you." Kim is shocked. It's the first time she has ever heard him say sorry, and because she's kind-hearted, she immediately forgives him. That night they both stay late at the office working overtime. Kim is sitting next to him, focused on her work. Lee Young keeps glancing at her. Then he slowly moves closer. "You told me not to cross the line," he says quietly. "But today, I'm going to out." He leans in toward her. It looks like he's about to kiss her. But at the last second something strange happens. Instead of kissing her, he suddenly pushes her chair backward. Kim feels completely humiliated. In reality, when Lee Young leaned close to her, he suddenly saw the witch-like woman from his nightmares. For a moment Kim's face overlapped with that terrifying image in his mind, and he panicked. Embarrassed, he tries to explain that, "Please let me explain. That was an accident." But Kim is furious. "For a moment I forgot that you're a narcissist," she says, "someone who can only love himself." Then she adds an even harsher insult. "I'll treat this kiss the same way I treat the time a kid kissed me in kindergarten as a joke." Basically, she just compared the mighty Mr. Perfect to a kindergarten kid. And honestly, for someone like Lee Young, there's probably no bigger insult. Before leaving she says angrily, "I'm taking tomorrow off. I don't want to see your face. In the next scene, Kim talks about the whole situation with her sisters. Her sister, who works as a nurse, immediately starts analyzing it like a medical case. She says that patients like this sometimes come to their clinic. According to her explanation, people who behave this way often have some kind of weakness or psychological issue. After giving a very serious medical theory, she concludes that poor Mr. Lee might actually have some kind of disorder and should probably get himself checked by a good male doctor. Now Kim spends the entire night thinking about this. She keeps wondering what kind of disease Lee Young could possibly have. Meanwhile, Lee Young himself is in terrible shape. He keeps imagining that Kim must be thinking all kinds of strange things about him after what happened. Feeling guilty, he even sends her a message saying sorry, but Kim completely ignores it. The next day she sends another employee to Lee Young's house with his tie and tells him, "I'm not coming today, just go and take care of him." But when that employee arrives, Lee Young feels extremely awkward having another guy come that close to him to fix his tie. He quickly shoos him away. Meanwhile, Kim thinks she'll finally enjoy her day off. But everywhere she goes, she keeps seeing reminders of Lee Young, but even yesterday's almost kiss keeps replaying in her mind. She tries going somewhere to clear her head, but unfortunately it turns out to be the same place where Lee Young had taken her on that amusement park date. So instead of forgetting him, she ends up remembering him even more. Back at the office, Lee Young's brother Seong arrives to discuss some business matters. The female employees immediately surround him because they're huge fans of the mysterious author Morpheus. Watching this, Lee Young thinks to himself that it's probably a good thing Kim didn't come to work today. Otherwise, she'd also be standing there asking for an autograph like the others. Meanwhile, Kim has basically wasted her entire day off doing nothing. When she finally returns home, she sees someone standing outside her house. And of course, it's Lee Young, the one person she didn't want to see today. Lee Young immediately apologizes. He says, "I'm sorry I took the day off too to make it up to you. I'll spend the day with you." Kim gets annoyed hearing this, but at the same time, she's bored of being alone, so she decides to take advantage of the situation. She agrees, but only on one condition. Today she says, "You'll go wherever I want to go and do whatever I say." Lee Young agrees. The first thing Kim decides is that they're going to travel by bus. For someone like Lee Young, this is practically an extreme sport. He has never used public transportation in his life. To make things worse, Kim sits down comfortably while forcing him to stand and hold the overhead pole like everyone else. At one sudden stop, Lee Young loses balance and falls right into her lap. The other passengers immediately start teasing him. What kind of guy doesn't even know how to stand properly on a bus? They laugh. Next, Kim takes him to a small local restaurant. Lee Young eats there with her. While eating, he tries to learn more about her life. When he finds out that Kim and her sisters often eat there, he actually feels happy. In reality, Lee Young is trying very hard to change himself for Kim, and Kim notices that. For the first time, he's acting friendly and relaxed. Slowly, Kim's heart begins to soften. Later they pass by a toy claw machine. Kim tries to win a toy but fails again and again. Mr. Perfect immediately steps in confidently. "This is easy," he says, "move aside." But after several attempts, he realizes that while he may be brilliant at business, so he's absolutely terrible at claw machines. After spending the whole day together, Lee Young walks Kim back to her house. When he drops her off, he notices the smile on her face. It looks like she might have finally forgotten yesterday's embarrassing incident. Later we learn something new about Kim. For a long time she has been searching for her childhood sweetheart. Through a friend, she finally finds an old case file. The information reveals that the boy she's searching for was the son of the chairman of the Young-joon group, and he was kidnapped along with her when she was a child. At that time the boy was in the 4th grade, and the chairman's older son Seong was also in the 4th grade. Kim suddenly remembers something. Lee Young once told her that he had skipped 2 grades and ended up in the same class as his older brother. Now she starts wondering, could that kidnapped boy actually be Lee Young? She decides to ask Mr. Park about it, but Park says, "I'm his friend, but he never told me much about his childhood." Kim's suspicion grows stronger. After all, she has seen the scar on Lee Young's leg. He also has a phobia of cable ties, and he often has nightmares. All of this suggests he might have experienced some kind of childhood trauma. The next day at the office, Kim finds herself looking at Lee Young with unusual affection. For the first time, she's looking at him the way someone might look at their childhood love. Meanwhile, Lee Young notices her staring. Of course, his ego immediately kicks in. He thinks she's just admiring his handsome face. But Kim's behavior doesn't stop there. She becomes extra polite and gentle with him. Lee Young quickly realizes something feels different. Later he passes a toy claw machine again and suddenly remembers Kim. He decides that once he leaves work, he'll win a toy and give it to her as a gift. But when he starts playing the machine, some kids nearby begin making fun of him. They say he looks like a jobless guy wasting time. Offended, Lee Young immediately snaps back, "I'm the owner of the company that makes the appliances in your homes. Eventually, he finally manages to win a toy. He gives the toy directly to Kim and says, "Whenever you see this, remember me." Soon after that, Gia tells Kim she has discovered something about Morpheus. Apparently Morpheus was also kidnapped as a child. Kim is shocked. She had convinced herself that Lee Young was her childhood sweetheart, but now it seems like that person might actually be Seong instead. Instead of panicking, Kim decides to ask Lee Young directly. When she brings it up, Lee Young calmly says that Se-young was the one who was kidnapped as a child. Kim then asks about the scar on his leg. Lee Young seems uncomfortable and avoids answering clearly. He also looks strangely sad. It suddenly dawns on him why Kim had been looking at him so lovingly for the past 2 days. She thought he was her childhood love. After that, Kim goes to meet Se-young and asks him about the kidnapping. Se-fong explains that because of the trauma, his memories from that time are fragmented. He doesn't remember much about the incident. From the way Se-young talks, it sounds like Lee Young used to bully him. He claims that Lee Young once left him alone in an abandoned building just to tease him. But Lee Young has always told the opposite story. Even after hearing all this, Kim's heart refuses to believe it. Later she goes to Lee Young's house to do some overtime work for the upcoming event. She needs to organize some files, so she heads to the library. While searching through the shelves, she finds a very old file containing the resumes of all the applicants who had applied for the secretary position years ago. Looking through the resumes, she notices something surprising. All the applicants had qualifications very similar to hers. So why was she the only one selected? Just then Lee Young appears. He tells her, Secretary Kim was selected because, you are Kim Miso. The way he says it makes it clear that there's a deeper meaning behind his words. But he quickly avoids explaining and changes the subject. Later Lee Young thinks about the past. He remembers that Kim originally worked as a general employee in the company. Yet for some unknown reason, he personally chose her to become his secretary. The real reason remains a secret, for now. The next day Se-young calls Kim and invites her to lunch. He says he wants to talk about their childhood memories. Kim tells Lee Young about the meeting and asks for half-day leave. When Kim and Se-young sit together, Se-young explains that he doesn't remember much about the kidnapping. So he asks Kim what she remembers. Kim does remember several things. But strangely, she doesn't feel comfortable sharing those memories with him. Instead she says, I was only 5 years old. I remember very little. You were older. You probably remember more. After the meeting they leave. But unexpectedly, Lee Young also arrives there. He actually came on purpose. His jealousy wouldn't let him sit quietly in the office. He pulls Se-young aside and warns him, stay away from Kim. But Se-young isn't backing down. He tells Lee Young that even though Kim worked as his secretary for 9 years, she has been searching for him since childhood. She's the one in her heart, Se-young says confidently. Then he adds something bold, let's compete and see who Kim chooses. After hearing this, Lee Young becomes deeply troubled. Later, he learns from Kim that she and Se-young are planning to visit the place where the childhood incident happened, hoping it might trigger some memories. Hearing that makes Lee Young even more uncomfortable. And soon after that, Kim and Se-young are seen standing together, preparing to go to that very place. At the same time, Lee Young is heading to a meeting with Park when Kim and Se-young arrive nearby. Park quickly places his hand over Kim's eyes so she can see them together. He doesn't want Lee Young to get distracted or upset during the meeting. Of course, that move needs an explanation. So Park awkwardly says, oh, I was just remembering a childhood game. I wondered if you could recognize me just by my hands. Nice save, kind of. Meanwhile, Kim and Se-young go to the place connected to their childhood kidnapping. Se-young explains that he only remembers hearing about a mysterious woman who kidnapped them. But he doesn't remember many details beyond that. Even after coming back to this location, his memories don't return. Kim, however, clearly remembers more than she's saying. It almost feels like she's intentionally hiding some details from Se-young. At one point he asks her, what did you use to call me back then? Then he smiles and says, you can still call me Appa if you want. Later, they sit down to eat together. But during lunch Kim suddenly receives a call from Lee Young. He says there's an urgent situation at the office. Kim rushes back immediately. When she arrives, Lee Young is standing outside the building looking extremely jealous. As Se-young waves goodbye to her, Kim casually says bye Appa. The moment Lee Young hears that word, his facial expression is priceless. Once Se-young leaves, Kim asks Lee Young what the urgent problem was. He replies very seriously, the urgent problem is that the vice chairman of the Young-joon group is extremely hungry and wants noodles. So Kim ends up taking him to a restaurant. But once they arrive, Lee Young suddenly changes his mind. I want food cooked by you, he says. Then he finally blurts out something he's been holding back. You know that I like you. Why doesn't you like me? Why do you keep bringing Se-young between us? We could both be happy together. Kim is shocked. Lee Young, the arrogant perfectionist who normally shows zero emotion, is actually confessing his feelings. But Kim can't simply accept something like that. Even when he drops her home, he stops her again. Please stop playing this game, he says. We should start dating. We're perfect for each other. We've been together for 9 years. But Kim calmly responds that he's only acting like this because he's jealous of Seong. And clearly, this is not the right time. So yes, our poor hero gets rejected again. The next day at the office, Kim goes on a team-building trip with her coworkers. Everyone is excited and making plans for activities. But for some reason Kim keeps thinking about Lee Young. It seems she has gotten used to having him around. The group is happily exploring the mountains when suddenly they notice smoke rising nearby. And standing there in the distance, wow, is a familiar figure who looks almost like a ghost. It's their boss. The moment they recognize Lee Young, everyone's excitement immediately drops. Still, they force smiles onto their faces. Lee Young walks over and says, "How could you all forget Mr. Lee Young? My driver is part of the team too, I only came to drop him off. But seeing how happy you all look, maybe I should stay and make you even happier." Of course, that means the boss is now joining their team-building exercise. And to make things even more stressful, he announces that he will personally evaluate everyone's vision statements during the activity. Later he pulls Kim aside and quietly admits the truth. "That was just an excuse, I came here for you." Throughout the activity he listens to everyone's ideas and presentations. But he invents a strange rule. He will judge their ideas by staring into their eyes. In reality, he just wants an excuse to keep making eye contact with Kim. Next they start a mountain game where teens must collect ribbons. The team that brings back the most ribbons wins. Lee Young deliberately places Kim on his team so he can spend more time with her. But during the game, Kim receives a phone call from Seong-dae. Immediately Lee Young grabs the phone and hangs up. Kim becomes angry, but suddenly it begins to rain. Lee Young quickly takes off his coat and holds it over her head like an umbrella. This creates a sweet little romantic moment. Later they sit together watching the rain fall. Suddenly Kim notices a spider nearby and panics. Lee Young gently calms her down and hands her a piece of chocolate. Kim freezes in surprise. Because that exact thing happened during her childhood kidnapping. Whenever she got scared, the boy with her gave her chocolate to comfort her. Now in the present she feels confused. Her memories say that boy was Sekwang, but the way Lee Young behaves feels strangely familiar. Finally she tells Lee Young the truth. "I've been searching for Sejong since childhood. He supported me during that horrible time. He holds a special place in my memories. And in my heart." She asks Lee Young not to stop her from getting close to him. "I need to see everything myself," she says. "I need to understand my past." Lee Young listens quietly. Then he says something very mature. "Okay, do what you want, live your life. I won't stop you." He realizes something important. Love cannot be forced. If Kim truly belongs with him, she will come back on her own. Then Kim asks him about something else. "Why did you push me away when you tried to kiss me?" Lee Young explains that whenever he closes his eyes, he sees the same mysterious woman who kidnapped him in childhood. When Kim asks for more details, he jokingly points toward the dark bushes nearby. Maybe that witch is hiding over there. Meanwhile, the rest of the office staff become worried when Lee Young and Kim return completely soaked from the rain and extremely late. All the food prepared for the teen dinner has already been finished. Even the special dish reserved for the boss got mixed up with everything else. Everyone expects Lee Young to explode with anger. But surprisingly, why he doesn't tend. Instead he calmly says, "Anyone can make mistakes." In fact, he seems happy, because this means he gets another chance to eat instant noodles with Kim, and they sit together enjoying noodles again. But the next morning Lee Young leaves early. Before leaving he sends Kim a message. "I'll wait for you this evening. I'm preparing a barbecue dinner for you at my house." After finishing his meetings, he drags Park along to buy groceries for the barbecue. Park is thrilled, so until Lee Young suddenly abandons him there. Because this dinner is meant to be romantic, and only for Kim. That evening Kim gets ready and arrives looking beautiful. When Lee Young sees her, he can stop staring. He compliments her appearance. But when Kim checks the grill, she realizes something terrible. All the food is burned, instead of barbecue, and they now have nothing but charcoal. The two of them burst out laughing. In the end they give up and order pizza instead. Just when a romantic moment finally arrives and Lee Young leans in to kiss her, he suddenly gets scared again. And to make things worse, Park shows up at the worst possible moment. Both Lee Young and Kim awkwardly pretend nothing happened. Park also leaves feeling extremely embarrassed. The next day Lee Young is worried Kim might be angry. After all, he failed to kiss her again. Meanwhile, the office staff start worrying about their boss's strange behavior. Something clearly seems off. Elsewhere, Sejong tells his mother something important. The girl who was kidnapped with him in childhood, right, was his mother because she asks Kim several questions about the kidnapping incident. While listening, tears begin to form in her eyes. Then she asks softly, "How is my Lee Young?" Interestingly, she doesn't mention Seon's name at all. Kim pauses. Then she says something surprising. "He was very brave. He supported me and protected me the whole time. In the end, he was the one who brought me safely home." Later Kim notices something strange. She looks at Seon's feet and sees no scars, but Lee Young has visible scars on his legs. This makes her doubts grow stronger. She remembers that the place where they were held captive was extremely cold. Seon never seemed sensitive to cold, but Lee Young always reacts strongly to cold temperatures. And the boy who was with her back then also hated the cold. Meanwhile, Lee Young himself begins remembering fragments of his childhood. He remembers promising little Kim that when they grew up, now, he would marry her. He even gave her a pinky promise because she refused to stop being angry until he did. So now the mystery becomes even bigger. If Lee Young was actually the kidnapped boy, why has he been hiding it? Later that night, Lee Young appears outside Kim's house holding a huge box of chocolates. He wants to make up for the failed kiss. The next day, the library opening ceremony finally takes place. Seong is present as the special guest, and he keeps finding excuses to stand close to Kim. Lee Young notices everything, and once again, his mood turns very dark. Right after the library opening event, Lee Young becomes so irritated watching Seong flirt with Kim that he immediately leaves the event. Kim also didn't like the way Seong was behaving, so she quickly runs outside and follows Lee Young. She stops him and asks him to listen to her explanation. But Lee Young coldly says there's no need to explain anything. Kim insists there absolutely is, and then she finally says the words Lee Young has been waiting to hear. "I like you, Mr. Lee Young." For a moment, everything becomes quiet between them. They both realize the truth they've been dancing around for so long. Naturally, Lee Young tries to kiss her again. And of course, once again he hesitates. But this time Kim doesn't let the moment slip away. She leans forward and kisses him first. And just like that, after all the misunderstandings, jealousy, and awkward almost kisses, they finally become a real couple. Their dating officially begins. Lee Young looks unbelievably happy. When he drops her home that night, he says something very Lee Young like, "We shouldn't date like this for too long. I think we should just get married soon." Kim immediately blushes. "We started dating this evening," she says, laughing, "and you're already talking about marriage tonight." But on the way back home, Lee Young keeps remembering the past. Childhood memories start flashing through his mind. Little Kim telling him she wanted to marry him one day. This time she didn't resist him. Overcome with emotion, he suddenly makes a U-turn with the car and goes back to see her again. He hugs her tightly and says, "I don't want to stay away from you." That night Kim has a strange dream. In the dream she sees the boy who was kidnapped with her as a child. And suddenly she remembers something she had forgotten before, his name, Leong Posti. But then she starts wondering, maybe that boy was actually Seong. But the next day she goes to the office. It's officially the first day of their relationship. But things immediately become confusing. When Kim tries to leave the office while Lee Young is resting, he suddenly grabs her hand, pulls her onto his lap, and starts flirting with her. Kim can even tell anymore when she's supposed to act like his secretary, and when she's supposed to act like his girlfriend. Lee Young laughs and says, "We finally met like this after so long, I'm not slowing down now." Later Kim asks him something serious. "For some reason, my instincts keep telling me that the boy who was kidnapped with me in childhood, was you." But Lee Young quickly denies it. "No, not me. Sewon was the one who was kidnapped." Later they go out for a dinner date. But the entire evening feels confusing for Kim. Instead of treating her like a girlfriend, Lee Young keeps acting like she's still his secretary. Finally he takes her hand and says something sincere. "You don't have to take care of me so much anymore. You're my girlfriend now. As a boss, I've been very selfish. But now I want to be a caring boyfriend." Because of that, he stops calling her constantly for small things. One day he even makes copies of documents by himself. The office staff are completely shocked. Mr. Perfect, doing office chores himself. Then one day he even walks out to buy snacks for himself. Everyone whispers to each other that something strange must be happening. Has their boss finally gone crazy? But in reality, Lee Young has secretly prepared tea for his girlfriend inside the office. It's the first time he has ever made tea with his own hands. Unfortunately, it's extremely hot. Kim burns her mouth trying to drink it, and of course the entire office witnesses the scene. Panicking, Lee Young quickly comes up with a ridiculous excuse. "I've decided to celebrate something called Eye Contact Day." He claims that he will often celebrate days like this. "I made my first eye contact with Secretary Kim," he explains dramatically, "and now I'll make eye contact with all my employees." Basically, he invents this whole nonsense event just to hide their relationship. After that, both of them become extra careful at the office, so nobody suspects anything. Later that evening Lee Young goes to Kim's house with special food so they can spend some quiet time together. Kim is delighted when she sees that the food he brought is exactly her favorite, but just as things are getting cozy, there's a loud knock on the door. Kim's two sisters have arrived. Panic mode begins immediately. Kim grabs Lee Young and hides him inside a cupboard. Unfortunately, her sisters are basically detectives. They quickly notice the open food and start questioning her. "Who else would come here except that creepy boss of yours?" They begin insulting him non-stop. Your boss is such a shameless guy. First he teases you, and then he hides his problems. He doesn't even know how to kiss properly and still comes here to flirt. Meanwhile, Lee Young is inside the cupboard and, listening to every single word. Once the sisters finally leave, Kim nervously opens the cupboard door. She expects Lee Young to be furious. But instead his reaction takes a different direction. Now he feels like he needs to prove that he actually is a good kisser. Later Seong comes to see Kim, but Kim has been avoiding him for quite some time. She's also confused because she gave him her childhood diary, yet he still doesn't seem to remember anything. Right at that moment, Lee Young arrives. Without hesitation he grabs Kim's hand right in front of Seong and walks away with her. Now Seong clearly understands that the two of them like each other. Later Kim spends some time alone with Lee Young. During that conversation he casually mentions something interesting. Even as a child he used to wear clothes designed by one of his mother's fashion designer friends. Kim quietly notices this detail, because the boy who was kidnapped with her had been wearing clothes from that exact same designer. Later, while they're driving back, Lee Young falls asleep in the car. Kim decides to test something. Instead of calling him by his usual name, she calls him Sing Hyewon, the name his mother used for him as a child. Half asleep, Lee Young automatically responds, "Yes, wake." That one word confirms everything for Kim. Now she asks him directly, "Did you change your name?" But Lee Young denies it and says nothing like that happened. Later Lee Young sits alone looking at Kim's photo, remembering everything. He quietly whispers, "There's no reason for you to remember all this again. Don't go through that pain again." But Kim isn't ready to give up. She goes to Lee Young's mother and asks which of her sons was named Sing Hyewon. But his mother avoids answering the question. Later Kim meets Seon again. He shows her childhood photos of the two brothers and asks which one she recognizes. And that's when Kim realizes the truth. The boy who was kidnapped with her was actually Lee Young, but she decides not to say anything yet. Later that evening she goes to Lee Young's house. He has just come out of the shower, and she clearly sees the scars on his legs, the same scars from the kidnapping incident. Tears fill her eyes. Lee Young notices her but misunderstands the reason. He assumes she's upset because her sisters don't approve of their relationship. Trying to comfort her, he says confidently, "It's okay, I know I'm very perfect, but I'll act ordinary in front of them. I'll win their hearts." He promises her that he will prove himself. After that he walks her home, and several sweet romantic moments happen between them. Soon Kim's sisters go on a vacation together. Lee Young secretly follows them there. The sisters immediately begin testing him. They are not impressed by his money or power. Instead they tell him he needs to prove himself like an ordinary person. So Lee Young eats simple food with them at a small restaurant. They even challenge him to eat as much as possible so the money doesn't to waste. Poor Lee Young obediently accepts everything. He silently tolerates all the teasing and criticism they throw at him, only because of Kim. Later they go clam hunting together. Lee Young arrives fully dressed in a funny outfit for the activity. A bet is made. Whichever team wins will get one wish granted by the other team. Watching Lee Young struggle to collect clams is hilarious. But eventually his team wins. And when it's time to make his wish, he simply says, "I want to be accepted as your brother-in-law." Finally the sisters agree. Lee Young promises them he will always keep Kim happy. Later Kim tells him something emotional. Every year the sisters come to this place to celebrate their mother's birthday. She says she misses her mother a lot. "My mother died when I was 4 years old," she explains softly. Then she tells Lee Young that if he ever wants to share his painful memories with her, he can. Instead of answering, Lee Young simply hugs her. Meanwhile, Lee Young's mother finally decides she can keep this secret anymore. She tells Seong the truth. It wasn't Seong who was kidnapped. It was Lee Young. Later Kim and Lee Young go out to watch a performance together. A magic show is about to begin. During the event Lee Young steps aside for a moment. So, for some work, and that's where the story continues. Meanwhile, Seong arrives at the venue looking for Kim. He approaches her and starts telling her what his mother recently revealed to him. But it's hard to tell whether Kim is even listening, because at that exact moment, the magician performing on stage walks out in front of the audience, and the second Kim sees her, she freezes. The magician's outfit, her eerie vibe, the way she carries herself, it all looks exactly like the woman who kidnapped Kim when she was a child. The resemblance is so strong that Kim's buried memories suddenly rush back all at once. Her heart starts racing, the room spins, and right there in the middle of the event, she faints from the shock. Of course, the magician isn't actually the kidnapper, it's just that her appearance and style are eerily similar to the woman from Kim's childhood trauma. But that resemblance is enough to trigger everything. Now the story finally shows us the truth in a flashback. When Kim was little, her mother had already passed away. One night she was sleeping at home with her sisters when she suddenly woke up and went outside looking for her mom. That's when a strange woman, a clearly unstable and dangerous person, happened to pass by. The woman tells Kim she'll take her to see her mother. Instead, she kidnaps her. At the place where the woman takes her, Kim finds that another child is already there. It's Lee Young. Kim is very young and doesn't understand what's happening. But Lee Young is older and immediately realizes they've been kidnapped. Still, when the little girl sits next to him and starts talking, he finds her adorable. Even though he's scared himself, he acts brave and takes care of her. He tries to keep her calm and never lets her fully realize the danger they're in. Later the woman returns and starts terrifying them. It turns out she was deeply hurt by someone she loved. The man she had a relationship with turned out to be married and already had children. Blinded by rage and betrayal, she decided to take revenge on the world by hurting others. And unfortunately, these 2 children became her victims. The woman repeatedly tortures Lee Young and threatens to kill both of them. But Lee Young, even as a child, tries to reason with her. He calmly tells her she shouldn't destroy her life over someone who betrayed her. He even promises that if she lets them go, he won't tell the police anything. After hearing him speak again and again, something finally changes in the woman. She starts realizing what she's done. The guilt becomes too overwhelming, right in front of the children. So, she ends her own life. Kim didn't actually see that moment, but Lee Young saw everything. The shock completely traumatizes him. When Kim notices the woman hanging, Lee Young quickly lies to protect her. He tells her it's not a person, it's just a big spider. After that, Lee Young manages to escape with Kim and brings her safely home. During that time, Kim tells him something sweet. "You're like a prince to me. When we grow up, will you marry me?" But the trauma from that incident destroys Lee Young emotionally. He keeps seeing the same terrifying woman everywhere. Because of the shock, he faints repeatedly and has to stay in the hospital for a long time. Sometimes he even suffers seizures. Meanwhile, Kim moves away with her family and loses contact with him completely. Years later, Lee Young happens to see Kim again when she starts working at his company as a general employee. He recognizes her instantly, but he never tells her the truth. Instead, he secretly promotes her to be his personal secretary. By keeping her close, he can protect her. Kim has always held a special place in his heart. But because of everything he went through during that kidnapping, he never wanted her to remember that traumatic experience again. So he stayed silent. He was strict with her, sometimes harsh, but he always cared about her behind the scenes. And over the years he helped her grow until she reached the top of her career. Back in the present, Seong confronts Lee Young. "I know the truth now," he says. "Why did you hide everything?" The truth is that Seong was actually the one who had left Lee Young alone at that abandoned building as part of a childish prank. When Lee Young disappeared for 3 days afterward, Sejong felt overwhelming guilt. He blamed himself so much that he became sick and eventually lost parts of his memory. Seeing how much pain the whole family suffered, Lee Young decided to pretend that he had forgotten the incident too. But the truth is, he remembers everything. Every detail still haunts him to this day. To protect his family from more pain, he even changed his name to Leong. When Kim wakes up in the hospital, she starts complaining to him. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" Lee Young apologizes. "I couldn't even bring myself to visit the trauma center," he admits. "How could I make you relive that pain?" But Kim gets angry. "You're very selfish," she says. Then she makes him promise something. "From now on, you won't hide anything from me." After that, Lee Young takes very good care of his girlfriend while she recovers in the hospital. Eventually he returns to work, but even at the office, he keeps thinking about Kim constantly. Meanwhile, Kim refuses to sit quietly in the hospital. She shows up at the office saying she feels completely fine. Lee Young immediately realizes she won't rest unless he forces her to. So he comes up with a clever plan. He announces that the entire staff will get a free spa day, paid for by him. Kim and the other employees happily go to enjoy the spa. Of course, the boss only arranged this so Kim would relax, but now everyone gets free luxury treatment. While relaxing, the coworkers start gossiping about their boss. Some even complain about him. Kim secretly gets annoyed because now Lee Young isn't just her boss anymore. He's also her boyfriend. Later, Lee Young takes Kim to the amusement park again. He shows her a specific location and explains something. "This is where we were kidnapped. The place that once held painful memories has now been turned into a fun park where children come to laugh and play." On the way back, Lee Young says something softly. "Because of that trauma, I still have nightmares sometimes." He also worries that now Kim might start having nightmares again after remembering everything. "That's why I want to stay with you tonight," he says, but Kim refuses. "It wouldn't be appropriate for me to stay at your house." Later that night, someone knocks on her door. It's Lee Young. "If you won't come to my house," he says, "then I'll stay here." Kim tries to protest. Her apartment is tiny, but Lee Young has already arrived with a suitcase. Clearly he planned to stay several days. He somehow squeezes all his belongings into her small apartment. Even the bed is tiny. Still he manages to fit himself there. Kim feels extremely awkward lying next to him. Instead of sleeping, she nervously suggests watching TV. Unfortunately, the TV program is full of romantic scenes, which only makes things more awkward. So Lee Young suggests they go outside for some fresh air and drink a little wine. They move to the terrace, but they can find a bottle opener. Kim tries several creative ways to open the wine. Then she realizes the bottle costs $200. She calmly gives up and puts it aside. Suddenly a neighbor from downstairs yells at them. Apparently they parked their car in the wrong space. The neighbor starts scolding them loudly. You live in such a tiny apartment but drive such an expensive car. Think about your expenses. The woman brags that her son just got a job at the Young-joon company. Of course, says she has no idea she's yelling at the vice chairman of the company. Eventually, Lee Young decides the situation isn't comfortable, so Kim moves to stay at his house instead. But when she's alone in the guest room, she starts feeling uneasy. Lee Young comes in and sits beside her. I did all this so you wouldn't feel alone, he says. I'll sleep here too so you won't get scared. He even sings a song to help her fall asleep. Kim sleeps peacefully. Lee Young watches her with a smile, but the entire night Kim keeps waking up and calling his name. Because of that, Lee Young barely sleeps at all. By morning he looks exhausted with huge dark circles under his eyes, but he's grumpy and irritated. Before leaving for work he turns to Kim and says only one thing. Miss Kim, I can't guarantee what will happen tonight. After a while, Kim finally realizes what Lee Young meant the previous night when he warned her. What he was really saying was, if you sleep in my bed tonight, I can guarantee I'll be able to control myself. Once that realization hits her, she turns bright red. Later, the two of them go shopping together. At one point, they're buying matching couple mugs, clearly enjoying their new relationship. While they're browsing, the shopkeeper enthusiastically tells them that their dinnerware sets are very popular among newly married couples and asks if they'd like to buy one. The second Lee Young hears the word newlyweds, his eyes light up. He's immediately ready to buy the entire set, but Kim quickly stops him. Those are things for after marriage, she says calmly. We don't need them yet. Meanwhile, Lee Young's parents arrive at his office to see him. They tell him that Sejong feels extremely guilty about everything that happened in the past. Because of that guilt, Sejong has decided to leave and go far away, possibly never returning. Hearing this makes Lee Young very emotional, as memories of his childhood start flooding back. The truth is, Sejong had seen how much suffering Lee Young went through after the kidnapping, how he was hospitalized for a long time, and even left with scars on his legs. Feeling responsible, Sejong tried to take the blame himself. He even told people that he was the one who had been kidnapped because of Lee Young. Because of this lie, Sejong had to undergo psychiatric treatment for a long time. And because of that, Lee Young quietly carried the burden of everything alone. Even now, he never corrected the story. He simply allowed everyone to believe it happened to Sejong. After hearing all this again, Lee Young finally agrees with his parents. I'm ready to face everything now, he says. Kim overhears this conversation and feels heartbroken. From the outside, Lee Young's life looks perfect, like a polished mirror, but inside it's filled with hidden pain. Later Lee Young meets Sefong again. Both brothers are overwhelmed with guilt, but this time they finally talk honestly. Lee Young forgives him. What happened in the past has already happened. He says our parents have suffered enough. We shouldn't give them any more pain. For Lee Young, the greatest happiness in his life has always been Kim, the girl he met in childhood who is still by his side today. That evening Kim and Lee Young spend time together. They want to take their relationship to the next level. But suddenly Park calls and interrupts them. Park jokes that maybe he's cursed, he got divorced himself and somehow keeps ruining Lee Young's romantic moments too. Unfortunately Lee Young really does have an emergency related to work. He becomes busy and poor Kim falls asleep while waiting. Later Lee Young learns he has to travel overseas the next day for a business meeting. Before leaving, he gently puts his sleeping girlfriend to bed. In the morning he tells her, I'll be gone for a few days, but I'll miss you. Then he hands her a photo of himself. Just look at this face every day, he says dramatically. Your day will automatically become better. Of course, he also takes a photo of her to keep with him. Even while abroad, Lee Young constantly video calls Kim whenever he has free time. Sometimes he calls so often that Kim gets a little overwhelmed because she's trying to focus on work. Eventually, Lee Young decides to surprise her by returning early. But when he walks into the office unexpectedly, he sees Kim laughing and chatting with Mr. Ko, a coworker who recently joined their department. Instant jealousy mode activates. Whenever Lee Young gets jealous, his expression becomes oddly adorable. He complains to Kim, I came all this way to see you, and you're not even sad that I was gone. Kim secretly enjoys seeing this cute jealous side of him. Later he takes her out for lunch. During that time someone secretly takes a photo of them together. That photo eventually ends up with Jia, but Jia can't clearly see Kim's face in the picture. Still, she recognizes something familiar, the bracelet on Kim's wrist. Kim tries to deny it, saying someone else must have a similar bracelet, but eventually Jia figures out the truth and catches them. Kim nervously asks her not to tell anyone. When Lee Young hears about this, he actually gets excited. This is perfect, he says, let's tell everyone about our relationship. He wants the whole world to know that Kim is his girlfriend so no other guy dares flirt with her. But Kim isn't ready. You're famous across the whole country, she explains. If people find out I'm your girlfriend, I'll have to deal with a lot of attention. I'm not mentally ready for that yet. Lee Young reluctantly agrees. Later he tells her something with a mischievous smile. We're going home tonight, Kay, and I want to finish what was left incomplete the other night. Kim immediately starts blushing. How can he say something like that so casually? But before she can answer, she gets an urgent phone call. Her father has been hospitalized. Kim rushes to the hospital. Her father used to perform as a rock musician in clubs, and during one of his performances, he got so excited that he injured his back. Apparently, he forgot he wasn't young anymore while attempting some dramatic stage moves. Kim decides to stay at the hospital to take care of him. Meanwhile, Lee Young's romantic plans for the night completely collapse. Poor guy has to sleep alone. The next morning, while getting ready for work, Lee Young decides he should at least meet his future father-in-law. But when he reaches the hospital, Kim has stepped out to buy some things. Since he's in a hurry, he leaves without meeting her father. Later that day, he plans to have lunch with Kim, but Kim becomes busy with family matters. Her sister brings her lunch and even gives her some shopping coupons along with inexpensive clothes. When Kim returns to the office carrying shopping bags, Lee Young thinks she brought something special for him. But when he realizes the bags contain things she bought for herself, and she already ate lunch, he looks extremely disappointed. He starts behaving like a jealous child. Eventually, he goes straight to Park to complain. The Park is the person Lee Young always shares both his happiness and his sorrows with. Lee Young tells him that Kim doesn't seem interested in taking their relationship further. Park gives him serious advice. Don't pressure her, he says. If you push too hard, she might start thinking you're not her boyfriend, but a monster, trying to force himself on her. Just imagining that possibility scares Lee Young, so he immediately goes to Kim and tells her that everything should happen at her pace. But Kim misunderstands his reaction. She thinks he's feeling disappointed. If my boyfriend can share his wishes with me, she thinks, then who can he share them with? So that night she goes to his house. Lee Young warns her again. If you come here tonight, I can't promise, I'll control myself. But Kim quietly walks inside, and that night, the sweet couple finally spends their first night together. The next morning both of them look incredibly happy. Lee Young doesn't even feel like going to work, but Kim reminds him that he has an important meeting. She even prepares breakfast for him. Later that day, Lee Young calls her. I want to take you somewhere special, he says. I want you to meet a friend. Kim feels excited, but when they arrive, it turns out to be a small restaurant run by one of Lee Young's friends. Not a male friend, but a female friend, and she seems extremely comfortable with him. She happily shares childhood stories about Lee Young. Watching them together makes Kim unexpectedly jealous. Then the friend casually says something shocking. You know, I was the first person Lee Young ever proposed to, when he was 5 years old. Kim's face instantly freezes. Afterward, Lee Young drops Kim at the hospital where her father is staying, but he doesn't realize that her father sees them together. Kim's dad calls both of them over and starts scolding Lee Young loudly. So you're the boss who tortured my daughter for 9 years, he says angrily. You kept her running around doing everything for you. He clearly tells Lee Young that he does not approve of their relationship yet. I'll test you first, he declares. Kim is shocked. But later, in private, her father quietly admits something different. The boy seems nice, he says. I actually like him. Kim's dad privately tells Lee Young something important. It looks like you really love my daughter, he says. But do you think I'm just going to hand her over to you on a silver platter? He smiles a little and continues. Precious things require hard work. I've already accepted you as my future son-in-law in my heart, but you still have to prove it. Then he sits down with Lee Young alone and talks to him properly, trying to understand him better. He explains how important Kim is to him and how difficult her childhood was. She worked extremely hard to build her life and her career. Listening to all this makes Lee Young appreciate Kim even more. One day at the office, Lee Young walks up behind Kim and hugs her from the back. Unfortunately for them, 3 coworkers see the whole thing. Both of them freeze. They've been caught red-handed. At this point, Lee Young decides he doesn't want to hide anymore. He calls those coworkers over and says confidently, Kim and I are dating, we're in love, and we're going to get married soon. Kim quickly panics and asks them not to tell anyone, but the coworkers awkwardly reply that they don't plan to tell anyone, because the rumor has already spread across the entire office. Apparently someone had already seen the two of them together at a hotel. Soon the whole office starts gossiping about Kim. People say that for 9 years she guarded such a handsome and perfect man like a snake protecting treasure. They claim she never let any other woman get close to him and eventually stole him for herself. Some even say she's extremely clever. Kim's friends overhear some of the girls talking badly about her in the restroom, and a fight almost breaks out. Kim feels terrible. For 9 years she had built a reputation of respect in the office, and now her image is getting damaged by rumors. When Lee Young realizes this, he takes her out to cheer her up. He tells her that people will always talk. We shouldn't let that affect our relationship, he says. Eventually everything will settle down. After their outing, they visit a night market, and Kim feeds him all kinds of delicious street food that she loves. Later they go to Kim's house. Lee Young gets romantic and says directly, "I want to marry you. I don't want to wait any longer. Do you have any objections?" He starts kissing her, but suddenly someone interrupts them. It's Kim's dad lying on her bed. He jumps up and starts yelling so loudly that it looks like Lee Young might have a heart attack. Kim's dad drags him outside and scolds him. "What kind of proposal is that? Do you think my daughter is some business client where you can just say you want a deal immediately?" He explains that Kim deserves a proper proposal suited to her personality. Later, the two of them sit down together and start drinking. Kim's dad intentionally gets Lee Young drunk to test him. Even while drunk, Lee Young keeps repeating that he truly loves Kim and will always take care of her. Seeing this sincerity, Kim's dad finally approves of him. Later that night the two of them return home drunk. Kim is extremely embarrassed. Her dad keeps calling Lee Young my son-in-law, while Lee Young happily calls him father-in-law. Lee Young is thrilled. "Finally, I've impressed your dad and your sisters," he tells Kim proudly. "Now there's nothing standing between us and marriage." The next morning when Lee Young wakes up, he suddenly realizes how ridiculous he behaved while drunk. He starts scolding himself. "Lee Young, what were you doing? You're supposed to be a perfect man." Later he goes to Park and asks for advice on how to properly propose to Kim. Park says he proposed to his wife in front of the Eiffel Tower. Lee Young immediately rejects the idea. "You got divorced," he says bluntly. "That place is cursed. I'm not proposing there." Later Lee Young goes home where his mother is worried. She thinks Sae-dong might still like Kim and that it could cause another conflict between the brothers. But Sae-dong calmly says he has no objection. He knows Lee Young loves Kim. Sae-dong even offers Lee Young advice about proposing. "I'm a writer of romance novels," he says, "so trust me, Kim is a simple girl. Don't plan something overly fancy. Make it personal, something that feels like it was designed only for her." Lee Young realizes this is actually great advice. Soon he calls Kim to come over. When she arrives, she's stunned. Lee Young has decorated the entire house just for her. He has written special messages around the room describing their life together. Her favorite candies are placed everywhere. Then Lee Young sits at the piano and sings a song for her. The song perfectly reflects their story. Through all of this, he shows Kim how important she truly is to him. Finally, Lee Young gets down on one knee, and he proposes. Kim's eyes fill with tears. Of course, she says yes. It's the perfect proposal, one that was made only for Kim. Lee Young's mother is thrilled when she hears the news. She invites Kim shopping to prepare for the wedding. She buys her many things and tells her to be fully prepared for the meeting between the two families. Kim quickly realizes something funny. Just like Lee Young, his mother also loves perfection. "You and I will make a great pair," she tells Kim. "I'll show you how to be the perfect daughter-in-law." The next day Kim gets ready for the family meeting. She looks absolutely beautiful. She's wearing the dress Lee Young's mother bought for her, and it seems like it was made specifically for her. Meanwhile, Kim's dad and sisters arrive at Lee Young's luxurious house. For a moment they're shocked by how huge and fancy it is, but they quickly pretend like it doesn't impress them at all. When the two families sit together, the contrast between them is obvious, but none of that really matters. Both families only care about the happiness of Kim and Lee Young. Lee Young's mother immediately starts talking about wedding plans, and even offers to gift Kim a luxury car. Kim politely refuses. For a moment Lee Young's mother looks disappointed, but then she laughs and says she expected that answer. "We accept Kim exactly as she is," she says warmly. Meanwhile, Lee Young is so excited about the upcoming wedding that he checks the calendar every day. He even starts shopping for newlywed kitchen supplies. He becomes obsessed with small details and even tells Kim what kind of dresses she should wear. Kim begins to notice that he's becoming overly obsessed with the wedding and not focusing on work. One day they go to try on their wedding outfits. But Kim is stuck at work dealing with an emergency. Lee Young waits and waits at the shop, imagining how handsome he looks in the mirror. But Kim never arrives. Later Kim tries to make it up to him by taking him out for coffee. Unfortunately, it's the same cafe where she once met her blind date. The moment Lee Young remembers that, his jealousy explodes. He complains that she once fixed another man's tie there. Kim explains she simply can't stand seeing someone with a messy tie. But Lee Young is already in a terrible mood. First she missed the wedding fitting, and then she brought him to this place. Eventually Kim gets angry too. She reminds him that he once asked her to bring flowers for another woman. The argument escalates and Kim storms off to stay with a friend. Meanwhile, Lee Young goes to Park and complains about everything. Park tries to calm him down, but when he accidentally insults Kim, Lee Young immediately gets angry. "No one is allowed to say anything bad about her except me," he says. "She's the best girl in the world." After that he storms out. A little later, Park's ex-wife arrives wanting to reconcile with him. Just as they're having an emotional moment, Lee Young suddenly shows up and completely ruins the scene. In a way, it's his little revenge. After all, Park, on the other side, Kim also starts to calm down. After thinking about everything, she realizes something important. She was the one who hurt Lee Young first, and now, she needs to fix it, so she decides that she will go to him and make things right. When she arrives at his house, Lee Young opens the door and immediately frees it. Kim is standing there wearing the same wedding gown she was supposed to try on earlier that day. For a moment neither of them says anything, then both of them start apologizing at the same time. Their argument melts away instantly. After clearing up the misunderstanding, they finally relax and go to sleep. But for Lee Young, sleeping isn't exactly easy. Because now that he has seen Kim wearing her bridal gown, his brain is completely stuck on one thought: their wedding. The poor guy literally starts staring at the calendar. "Come on," he says dramatically, "move faster and bring our wedding day already." Finally, the big day gets closer and closer. Now there's only one day left before the wedding. According to tradition, Lee Young spends that day with his family, while Kim spends it with hers. Both of them have a wonderful time with their families. Kim's dad even gets a special haircut just for the wedding. He proudly says this is the biggest gift he can give his daughter. Meanwhile, at Lee Young's house, Sejong reminds him of something important. "Tomorrow, make sure the wedding decorations use artificial roses," he says. Lee Young looks confused. Sung continues, "You know Kim is allergic to real roses, right?" Lee Young freezes. This is the first time he has heard about her pollen allergy. Immediately he sends Kim a message. "I'm sorry," he writes, "I didn't know about your pollen allergy, but I promise from now on I'll take good care of you." And finally, the wedding day arrives. Everyone gathers for the ceremony. Even Park shows up with his ex-wife, who is now apparently back together with him again. Meanwhile, Lee Young is incredibly nervous. Yes, the same man who runs a huge company and scares an entire office. Today, for the first time in his life, Mr. Perfect is nervous. On the other side, Jihan also arrives at the wedding. It looks like she might be planning to cause trouble. But fate has other plans. Instead of ruining the wedding, she ends up ruining her own dress, gets embarrassed, and quietly leaves without causing any drama. And finally, the moment arrives. The bride and groom walk into the ceremony. Lee Young looks at Kim, and you can tell from his expression that this moment means everything to him. Years ago, when they were just children trapped in that terrifying situation, he promised her something. He promised he would marry her someday. And today, he is finally keeping that promise. Standing there together, they truly look like they were made for each other. After exchanging their vows, Lee Young and Kim share a kiss. And just like that, their long, chaotic, emotional journey finally comes to a beautiful end. A perfectionist CEO, a loyal secretary who stood by him for 9 years, two childhood souls who found their way back to each other. And in the end, love wins. So that's the story of this drama. What did you think about it? Did Lee Young's hilarious narcissism make you laugh? Or did Kim's patience impress you the most? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing drama stories like this. Thanks for watching.